Hello, everybody. Welcome, Late Night Baltimore. This is your Late Night Baltimore host, and we are going to try to do a podcast here that is going to take on the argument that Biden was not only a better president than Trump, but vastly superior to Trump. And we're going to try to make the points, and we're going to try and make them fair. Um, and that's what we're going to try to do. So we hope you all enjoy. Leave a comment if you will. And let's go to it, shall we? We shall. All right. This is going to have a lot of raw data. Please comment if you like. We like all comments. We'll listen to everyone, and we will really like whatever you say. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay. Biden's America. How did Joe Biden leave America on his last day in office, and what do we have today? And if you want to rerun the 2024 election and versus Kamala, as a show for another day. But what we're dealing right now is Biden's last day in office into what Trump has brought us. All right, and we'll try to be as fair as possible. Of course, you know what our argument's going to be, but let's see what we can do. Interrupt, because a lot of people will not talk about Joe Biden. You have to talk about Joe Biden, who was the last Democratic president. So this is Late Night Baltimore. Biden was a friend of Baltimore. No podcast left or right has the guts to look at this cold, hard numbers. But we shall. So sit back and be ready. January 20th, 2025 in America versus right now, May 26th, 2026, under Donald Trump's second term. And we're a progressive show, and our conclusions you may think are already set, but let's see if we can't have interesting discussion about moral leadership and what American democracy is supposed to look like. So let us go. All right. Overall, yes, we're going to say that things were vastly better under Biden. But we're going to keep it fair. We're even going to talk about the border on the one issue Trump loves to tout. Let's start with that. Let's start with the border and how Trump fixed it. And look, the numbers do not lie. The southwest border encounter crossovers are at historic lows. That cannot be argued. That is a fact. Under Biden in his final month, the daily United States border crossings averaged daily United States Border Patrol apprehensions averaged about 2,600. Now they are down. It could be between 58 to 95% month to month, with March 2026 seeing just 8,268 total Southwest apprehensions. That's 97% below Biden's peak. Daily averages are somehow as low as 250. The Border Patrol data confirms that this is the lowest level in over 50 years. It's a fair point. Trump's policies delivered that drop, whether the humanitarian idea and whether the long-term solutions are in place. That's what we're going to debate, and whether the comprehensive strategy is going to be prudent or effective. Biden's big explosion in immigrant, if it was, I don't even know if it was, but if it was, it had to do with him saying in a debate that we would be open to anyone seeking political asylum. And that is what so-called experts point to the reason why there was such a rush to get here, that people could come here and get themselves in line by saying they were seeking political asylum. Well, it's hard to say that seeking political asylum and allowing that is something that we have to think is the worst thing ever. But okay, on that point, MAGA can argue that point. They have some data there. But let's be honest about the human cost. Biden never inflicted. Biden's approach to asylum processing, humanitarian parole, and targeted enforcement did not launch mass deportations into third countries that were not the migrants' home nations. It did not turn ICE into the out-of-control deportation machine we are seeing now, with reports of families ripped apart and people sent to places they never lived. Biden focused on the root causes and legal pathways. The chaos under the Biden border was real, but the Trump solution traded a crisis for an inhumane, expensive, and still not addressing the broken system. Joe Biden never built concentration camps, aka alligator Alcatraz, or filled up detention centers with people gathered up by mass paramilitary people, ICE workers, untrained officers of the law who have been gathering people in sort of an out of control fashion, out of regulated fashion, and filling up these detention centers all over the country, and people not knowing where their family is and how to reach their family members. That's what we have now. If that's the trade-off that you think is positive in the long run, then there's nothing that can be said for that. But if you think this ICE, these mass guys who are so very untrained, taking orders from leaders who have told them to go after mothers and school children who have invaded Home Depots and are removing a lot of Americans who are actually American citizens because of their carelessness and they don't really care, their incompetence. But that's the way it is. I would say that I would prefer greatly Joe Biden's way. In fact, I would prefer that amnesty be offered to people so that they can come out of the shadows and at least begin the process of getting in line and become citizens. And definitely, let's think about this. Biden never tried to argue against something that is so fundamental to American values that it's just like just a pillar of everything we believe in, everything that every president pretty much has always believed in, the founding fathers believed in, was birthright citizenship. If you are born in this country, you are an American citizen, and that has to be always the case. That is what makes America great, and that is part of immigration policy and Trump pursuing the end of that birthright citizenship, so you can retroactively remove people from the country by saying that they never were citizens. So that has to be considered. All right, now let's move on to foreign policy. Biden's last day in office, America was the rock-solid backbone of NATO. We were arming Ukraine to push back Russian aggression without a single American boot on the ground. No new war, no escalations, just helping Ukraine fight back the aggression of Russia, which is also a fundamental tradition for the last century, a fundamental American policy, and a right one, a correct one. The one that all these Republicans used to say made President Reagan, President Bush so great, and Margaret Thatcher. That's why those folks are supposed to be saints, because of their fighting Russian aggression. But for some reason, they don't. They all of a sudden, just to be negative, and because of their cult love of Trump, they have to think they're sort of on the side of Russia and Putin, whether they say it or not. They're okay with Ukraine being taken. Let's face it, even though they actually aren't. Okay. And also, Biden had to make the courageous choice that George W. didn't, President Obama didn't, and Trump definitely didn't, but said he was going to, of getting us out of Afghanistan. No other president had the fortitude to do it. It was no way you could win. There was no way it would go well. And it's no way you wouldn't take a huge political hit. But it was the right thing to finally do to end the 20-year involvement with Afghanistan. Now we look at today. Trump has started a war with Iran at the behest of Bibi Netanyahu. Trump threatened Iran's civilization will be ended if they do not comply with all the demands that he set forth. They haven't complied. In fact, as horrible as it is to think, America might actually be losing the conflict because of the price we are paying, and how the leaders that are now coming into Iran might even be more hardened in their hatred against America. All right, so continue. Remember the Venezuelan fishing boats blowing guys out in boats who we had never showed any evidence that they were committing crimes or doing something against America. But not only were these fishermen struck, they also did a double tap. And speaking of double tap, I do not believe that Biden ever ordered double taps against fishermen out in the ocean or school children in a school in Iran. That girls' school was another example that was hit in Iran, was another example of a double tap, which was all authorized by the Department of Defense. Well, it was the Department of Defense. Now they want to call it the Department of War. The Trump people do, to pretend a fake machismo, where things like the Geneva Conventions are just suggestions more than any kind of rule or any kind of moral guidepost. Biden kept us out of these direct conflicts while standing with our allies. Trump touted being an isolationist, but he's gotten us into several foreign entanglements of the value of which we still do not know, except we know the Venezuela attack made Trump much richer. So I guess that was positive, at least for that one American, but not really understanding how any of his foreign entanglements have been beneficial. Okay, so Biden administration did not do enough to temper Netanyahu's insatiable cruelty beyond just defending. But look at what Netanyahu has done since Trump came into power. Who do you think was happiest when Trump returned to power? Was anyone happier than Bibi Netanyahu? I can't think of any. Netanyahu tried to talk Biden into attacking and bombing Iran and eschewing diplomatic pursuits to ensure nuclear safety. But Biden would not bomb, but was part of the peace deal that was made when he was vice president under President Obama, the deal that Trump tore up, but is trying to get right now. And at the end of this conflict, right now, after all this bombing, we're going to be in a far worse position with Iran than when he started all this. And we're going to be in a far worse position than we would have been if we would have kept with the deal that we had made with Iran. I don't think anybody wants to can argue that. Okay, now we'll go to the economy, the numbers, the money. The deficit on Biden's last day, the deficit closed around 1.78 trillion. He was dealing with the end of COVID. We remember that. That has to be factored in, just as in Trump's first term, COVID has to be factored in to his numbers. But under Trump now, the CBO projects fiscal year 2026 at 1.85, 1.9 trillion. But that includes a lot of cuts whose pain is not, the checks haven't come due on all these cuts that were made. And now Trump is asking for, I believe, a 50% increase in the defense budget. So this deficit is going to go to places that no one even foresaw. So much for the fiscal responsibility that we're going to have with a businessman as president. Right, Biden was dealing with a lot of the healthcare expenses from COVID fairly. Trump was as well at the end of his term. I think where we were with COVID when Biden came to office and where we were when Biden's term ended. That was a lot of progress, whether you like how things were done. We have to admit that there was a great deal of progress there. Prices and inflation, go to that. Biden handed off an economy where inflation had cooled to about 3% by January of 2025 after the post-pandemic spike. Groceries prices and energy prices were stabilizing. Now in March of 2026, CPI, the Consumer Price Index, jumped to 3.3%, the highest numbers since May of 2024. Of course, driven by energy spikes and tariff ripple effects and with the uncertainty of the tariffs. Food, think about food. At-home prices are still up 1.9% year over end. The carton of eggs, hey, we were promised cheap eggs, you're paying more for. Biden worked hard to improve all the supply chains. That was a problem. Recent wars, but these recent wars, think now the Strait of Hormuz have really undone any progress in that area. Infrastructure. Biden's bipartisan. infrastructure law poured hundreds of billions into roads, bridges, broadband, and clean energy. Real shovel-ready projects, as they used to call them. Projects that were transforming whole communities. Projects that, another thing that Trump promised but never delivered. True infrastructure improvement. Now that's pretty good. Come on. Trump was all talk when it came to infrastructure. Biden delivered a bill. And of course, we've gone away from all sorts of renewable energy progress. All we're going to have to pursue again is just delaying it, but it's a cheap way to get results in the short term to ignore energy policy, renewable energy policy, and clean air, clean environment, environmental protections. Trump is just doing everything he can to delay it. Okay, we're going to go talk about another area where Trump people like to say that he would dominate: the trading. On Biden's last full day, trading day, was January 17th of 2025. The Dow Jones closed at 43,488. The NASDAQ closed at about 19,630. But the national gas price was $3.10 a gallon. Today, early May of 2026, Trump has the numbers. The Dow is around 49,500. That's up about 6,000 points, about 14% higher. NASDAQ has climbed about 25,000, up about 5,500 points, or about 28%. Trump has that. But now gas is now averaging around $4.40 a gallon. So that puts it up about $1.30, or 40% higher. Americans are spending $1.30 more per gallon than they were on Biden's last day. The country is burning about 11.5 billion gallons of gas a month, which adds up to around 15 billion extra paid by drivers nationwide in the last month or so. Per household, most folks are shelling out an extra $35 to $50 a month, depending on what they drive. So it's hitting consumer wallets hard, especially with the summer driving season quickly approaching, as they say. Okay, let's go to healthcare. That beautiful, wonderful, magnificent healthcare that we were supposed to get in 2 weeks. In the last 10 years, we were going to get that healthcare plan. Been promised that in 2 weeks for the last decade. But today, the healthcare costs are higher for most. And the big driver of all the higher costs is the expiration of the enhanced ACA subsidies at the end of 2025. It's about 23 million marketplace plan holders with subsidies are now paying $175 monthly out of pocket, and that's up $84, an increase about $91 per month, or over $1,000 more annually per person. Multiply that across millions of people, and you're looking at several $1 billion extra nationwide every month just on those expenses. Employer plans are now up too, around 6 to 7% higher costs this year, which usually means workers' pay is a few $100 have to pay a few $100 more annually in their share premiums. Bottom line, healthcare insurance is costing American households noticeably more now than on Biden's last day, especially if you buy your own plan. The subsidy cliff hit hard. Okay, let's go to other things like moral issues. USAID. Biden kept America as the world's humanitarian leader. Trump dismantled it, even though USAID has always been looked at as one of the more efficient cost benefit programs the government has ever had. Last year, the United States official development assistance budget dropped to less than 29 billion, down from 63 billion in 2024. So that is not efficiency. That is not justice. That is walking away from the global health, food security, and stability that prevent crisis from coming here to this country. Okay, I know. It sounds like I'm reading, and I have to read some of this because I have to get I want to keep it as facts. All right, Biden left us at a 4% unemployment percent, a steady GDP growth, about 3% in his later years. Violent crime was dropping sharply from 2022 peak, and the declines were continuing through 24 and into 2025. Stock market is much higher now, but it was much higher than it had been prior to Joe Biden taking office. And yes, a lot of that has to do with COVID, fairly. Unemployment today is about 4.3%. The GDP growth is slowed to 2.1% in 2025 and 2% in the first quarter of 2026. Crime is still falling. That's good. But the trend, let's be fair, the trend began under Joe Biden. Trump can have credit for not messing that up. You get credit for maintaining something positive, a trend that's positive. You get credit for that. The market is still volatile. There's big swings. Okay, well, let's go to another place where MAGA people would say that Trump shows great superiority. It's in amount of communication, his speeches, his social media. Yes, he does a lot more speeches and he puts a lot more out on social media than Joe Biden himself did. And in press conferences, also talking to the press. That is all fair. His quantity is a great deal more. But he isn't delivering facts or truth or honesty with the American people. He's out there saying scary and harmful and destructive things. He bloviates in a way that Biden never did. He wins that. And if that's what you want in a president, just someone who yells a lot and says a lot of horrible things to a president who you could say was not out doing press conferences, and that's not a good thing. But Biden never threatened to end a civilization. And as far as access, Trump has restricted press access to the people, trying to bring in the people who he knows are going to favor him. Biden didn't do that, as far as I know. Biden never had to be removed from a war room because he was unable to control a temper tantrum. No generals in the Biden era, as far as we know, had to tell him that dropping nukes was something we could not consider. It was messy leaving Afghanistan, but it put an end to a forever war. And it took courage. History will credit him with that. We couldn't remain there. Trump's talked about going back. Okay, let's go to something else. The transition of power. Biden handled it about as smoothly as he could. No lies about stolen elections, no January 6th, just a peaceful handoff, the way it's supposed to be done here in America, why we're so proud, why we are supposed to be the shining city on a hill. Biden did not spend the day of certification day in his office watching TV and rooting for an attack on the Capitol, the January 6th attack, which was an insurrection. And as a matter of fact, it was a successful insurrection in that it actually did delay the peaceful transfer of power because the constitutional procedure of certification was delayed for hours and done late into the night, hours after it was supposed to have been done. Not to mention that law officers died from that day. But Trump continues to lie about that election. He lies about it, even though everyone knows he knows that it was not a cheat, massive cheat, wasn't a cheat at all. It's odd, and here's something that nobody points out much, but the logic in MAGA is that the same people who orchestrated an election steal when they were out of office couldn't do the same when they were in office. Somehow, there was nothing wrong with the 2024 election. It was all on the up and up. Why? Because Trump got the votes. That's weird how that works, huh? He didn't say one thing about it. The only thing, he had one sentence answer to that question, which was almost never asked, and too big to rig. What does that mean? He didn't even get over 50% of the popular vote, or even 50%. He got less than 50% of the popular vote. More people who voted that day or for election, more people, more American citizens voted for someone other than Trump in 2024. Biden didn't work to end the Voting Rights Act, which is what Trump has done. So these are all, I know that this is all a slanted view on it. I'll take, but if people want to comment and argue points, I'll do that. It's hard for me to read put out these, all this statistics and raw data without sounding very robotic and not the greatest delivery. I apologize for that. I'm trying to get better at this. All right, we're still working. We still got more to say. More to say. All right. Let's go. All right. Let's see what more we can say. I still can say more. I'll check the comments too here in a second. Let me do this. Unprofessional. That's what I am. No, I am professional, but not polished. Still working at this damn thing. Doing this podcast. Maybe I hope you all support. I hope you get something out of it. All right. Let's see the comments here. How to rot out console emulators. Hello. Hey, bro. I enjoyed your stream. Oh, thank you. Somebody says hello. Hello. Hello, Kazi Can. Nice to see you. I know a lot of people are saying this is just all talking points, but really, who is talking about this? Who is trying to bring up Biden and saying how superior of a President Biden was compared to Donald Trump? That really is not something that people are saying, other podcasts. So, all right, now let's continue. Biden himself did not try the stunt that Trump has done with Texas, the grab in Texas for more seats in Congress because he knows or he fears the results of midterms may not be to his liking. So he's trying to get more seats. And of course, Virginia, so Democratic or states with Democratic legislatures are trying to react to it. But of course, their reactions are being stopped by the courts, while Texas's move for gerrymandering for more seats was not stopped, as far as I know. And speaking of being divisive, and we were, Joe Biden never sent National Guard people who were National Guard of one state, a red state, to be deployed into a blue state. And I use those finger quotes or whatever only because I don't believe that Joe Biden ever talked about blue and red states as real things. He may have talked about it when he would say America is not blue and red states, it's all America. We're all America. But Trump actively, is out there and talks that the red state good, blue state's bad. He is the one that is dividing the country and speaks in those terms. I don't think any president ever used those terms like that, like he does, like Trump does. So now we'll say that we try to put out all the data we can. Numbers at the border look better under Trump, but at the expense of humanity and long-term stability. Prices, healthcare, alliances, infrastructure, fiscal reality, basic decency, respect in the world, the moral power in the world, the moral voice in the world was all stronger, more authentic and real under Joe Biden, President Joe Biden. Under Biden, we were trying to build a future, not sell it out. So you don't get this from other podcasts. But here, Late Night Baltimore, we are saying at the end of the day, it's a big win, huge win for Biden. So we go to the obvious. Yes, Biden was in physical decline at the end there. He experienced a lot of tough moments. He rebounded some, but he fell back a lot and was diminishing. These are fair points, of course. I'm not going to say that wasn't happening. But I would like you to try to say that Trump is not declining rapidly, and Trump is not displaying what appears to be dementia and, in fact, great physical decline as he ages, as Biden did. Democrats, as usual, are weaklings when it comes to trying to avoid Joe Biden or any kind of discussion about it. And we don't have to look backward, but we have to give Joe Biden the credit that he deserves. And we have to say, come on, wouldn't we be in a better position if Kamala Harris was president? How could we be in a worse position than we are now? How could we be doing things wrong now? Would we be putting in detention American citizens? And would we be telling the other civilizations that we are going to end their civilization? Would that be happening? Come on. And Donald Trump is still talking about Joe Biden, or Joe Biden being so sleepy. And he sure must have I mean, he sure made an impression on Donald Trump. Sleepy Joe. It'd be nice if Trump, who does fall asleep a lot in public and shites himself. I guess those are okay. Crooked Joe. Only Biden would be just as crooked. I mean, as to say, we'll get to that in a second. Trump's level of corruption. So Donald Trump has had to deal with a lot of some attempts on his life. That's horrible. Wouldn't want that for anyone. It's deplorable. It is sick. But Biden had to deal with the same kind of things. And let's remember, as far as Donald Trump is always given credit for getting through these attempts, but no one brings up that Biden walked under the streets of Kiev next to Zelensky, out onto the streets, while the sirens of bombing alerts were going on. No one ever remembers that. And when you have Trump compared to Biden, Trump calls a female reporter piggy because she asked a question he didn't like. Joe Biden got salty with a Fox reporter, Jeff Ducey, I think, and he later called and apologized for that said getting salty. Do you think Trump is doing that or has done that? Trump calls any media that is critical of him as fake. He never acknowledges a media as positive that has said anything critical about him. So let's look at it like this. Trump is a declining president in his faculties, physically, mentally. He appears to be dealing with dementia. The same charges that were on Biden. But Biden wanted a great America, an America with accessible health care for all, equal protection under the law, an American democracy thriving in all its glory, one that continued to try to right itself and the flaws that it would discover in itself by looking at itself to make America better. And let's say make America great, keep America great. Trump literally destroyed the White House. He physically destroyed half of the White House. He seems to only care about the ballroom and getting himself rich and helping his oligarch friends. His long documented social ties to Epstein are all part of the public record. He said a year ago, he said that the whole thing, all the files, all the information was all just a hoax created by Obama and Clinton. But these ties with Epstein have raised fundamental questions about judgment, accountability, what powerful people can get away with when the spotlight turns elsewhere. If the evidence that has come up against Trump came up against a Democratic president, it would dominate the headlines all the time. We want the same standard, equal scrutiny, equal consequences, no matter which party it is. So, and in your heart of hearts, do you really think that Biden doing things to help his son, mostly it was to help his son deal with a drug problem. That's really what he did. Do you think that equates with Trump selling a coin with his image to make $3 billion, giving his own son a $25 million government contract, trying to take a gift from Qatar, that jet? He may have backed out of that one because of the backlash, but not from remorse. And Trump promising to give pardons out to all his criminal friends. If you're comfortable with saying that Biden and Trump or Biden and Harris and Trump are equally corrupt, equally trying to enrich themselves from their office, that they equally treated people with the same level of compassion, then okay, that's what you want to believe. If you're comfortable with saying that or taking that position and going with it, so be it. If you feel that Trump's team of Hegseth, Patel, Bondi, and Blanche were of the same merit of the people that work for Joe Biden, if that's what you want to say, then so be that as well. But you don't really believe it, I don't think. Biden's health concerns, yes, fair, but ignoring Trump's decline is not fair. Biden, even serving that one term, in the end, he will be regarded as an influential and positive president for the things that he did, things that he tried to do, but really mostly for the things that he succeeded in doing, and for the America that he fought for, and for the Americans that he fought for. Remember, Biden stood in a striking line with union workers. He was the first president to do it. He stood up to Russia, the same Russia that every American president has done for a century, while Trump has completely abandoned Ukraine to help his best friend, Vladimir Putin. Trump's party has the courts, the Congress, the White House, corporate media, big tech, and look at where we are. So nowadays, it seems that Donald Trump's main issue is the 12 trans athletes that play in college sports and making the big, beautiful, magnificent ballroom in the White House. Ask yourself right now, on the beginning of May of 2026, how you doing? Okay, so I'm gonna say it here. Biden wins, and it's not even close. And Harris would be a much greater president, better president, not even close. Now, at the end of this show, we often say the phrase F MAGA. Today, some of you might get this, some of you might not. The ones who get it, that's the ones, I think we'll all get this. But from this podcast, we're going to end the show with not F MAGA. We are going to say F Jake Tapper. Okay? All right, then. Okay, everybody. Please comment, like, subscribe, hate. Don't tell us what we're doing wrong, what we could be doing better. But we're getting out what we believe, and that means something. And we're hoping we're making a difference. Right now, it's important if you want to help candidates in the Democratic Party, you get to go to ActBlue to donate. And it's very easy to do. And it's very safe as far as as cyber secure and all that. I found it to be completely safe. And I recommend it. So get out and do that and keep fighting for the positive causes that you can, and keep, living your life in a positive manner, trying to be kind, taking care of yourself and your family and your neighbors. Those are all easy things to say, hard to do. Okay, everybody, have a good time for Saturday. And go watch them Arizons. I believe they're playing the Yankees. I believe that's going to be on. It's on TV now, I think. Go do that. Sit back and enjoy the rest of the day. All right. We will speak to you next time from Late Night Baltimore. I will say, good Saturday night.
Big Rooster.